Good morning, everybody. I see people coming in, so that's a great sign. I hope you can hear me, and welcome on this session, Dropsolid DXP for developers. Today, we'll be talking about a bunch of technologies and trying to help you get them set up as well, regardless if you're using the Dropsolid platform or maybe something else. For the sake of simplicity, I will be using the Dropsolid platform and all the components in there. But feel free to ask me any question at any time. Post it in the discussion chat or in the live Q&A. The moderation is not enabled, so your questions should be visible. And before we start, I wanted to explain you a bit about all the components that we enable or have in this thing called experience platform. Now, what does that mean? A digital experience platform? It actually means like a hyper sophisticated CMS, but outside of that CMS. So also the marketing automation that is connected to it, maybe a chatbot that's connected to it, but also outside channels from social media inwards to the CMS. And then also, and maybe you've seen that already in the DrupalCon, personalization. But personalization also on a hyper personalization level, so that we can actually interact with the end user in the same fashion as we would interact with that end user in a physical shop. Now, before I start, I wanted to ask you to post in the discussion chat if you have like really questions already in your mind, maybe from seeing previous content that you for sure would like to see on a technical level. To give you some insights, I'm fine in talking about anything in the code base, trying to set it up locally from each of the components. The components that we'll be talking the most about will be Matmatic, Drupal, and Apache Unomi. But also next to that, GitLab is also a part of our developer platform and part of a digital experience platform, because it's necessary to make changes to such a platform. So if you have any questions already from topics that you've seen before in this week, make sure you add them to this discussion chat. In a way, I want this to be a very interactive tutorial-like session. Even though I can't hear you, I will see and can see your chat. Okay. And if you have no questions, maybe just say hi so that we know that you're here and that other people also know that you're here. Okay. So to give you a bit of overview, and what is a DXP, and I'll be very brief here. A DXP, as I said, is a hyper-growth or a hyper-sophisticated CMS, where each of these items, and this is a diagram or like an image from Gartner, where each of these items or capabilities, as we call it, are somewhat represented in the end result that you provide for your customer. So today you provide a project to your customer, like a Drupal project, but ultimately you provide a digital marketing asset for your client. Or if you are the client yourself, you get that thing. Now with this, you actually get like a whole where the marketing automation is also provided to you, or at least the tool to do that, which in this case is Matmatic. There is personalization or context awareness possible with Apache Unomi, and much more. So it's Drupal plus a lot of things. So Eirik Moorland, that's a great question, and I'll get to that in the part of the personalization. But yes, it's open source. Now, to get started, obviously you need a project, and what you see here is the Dropsolid platform, and it actually has two projects. One of them is the Drupal site, and the other one is the Matmatic code base. Drupal, and that's PHP. Matmatic, you might or might not know, that's also PHP. Now to get started, let's start with the Drupal site. And this Drupal site is actually built with Rocketship. Rocketship is a distribution that's on Drupal.org. And we don't really say that you have to use it, but I think it provides a lot of useful insights in how to build Drupal sites, similar to Firebase or Acquia Lightning. This is the distribution that Dropsolid uses ourselves when we start to build websites, and it includes layout builder. It's almost ready for Drupal 9. And it's already available on the platform, so that should be fine. And it comes with a lot of options, including also a whole way of doing style guides on your website using Atomic Design and Pattern Lab. So feel free to take a look and take any valuable snippet out there. For us, this is like very much everyday business, as you can also see. The last commit was like 1 day ago. So this could be very interesting for any of you just trying to get a handle on what Dropsolid does when you see the Drupal demo. Now, creating a project is quite easy, but then we're always stuck in a Git land, and the Dropsolid platform also provides you with a Gitlab integration. This Gitlab integration is native in our platform. And you can see you have any functionality that you would expect from a hosted Git provider, GitHub or GitLab. In our case, it's GitLab because that's also open source. This is hosted and maintained by Dropsolid itself, but it allows you to do merge requests or any other development-friendly activity that you would like. Now, that's also not enough to just get the project on your own machine. We also have a container-based development tool, which is called Launchpad. Now, Launchpad is very similar to DDEV or Orlando, with the single difference that it's connected to our platform. So it becomes very easy to, with a single command, as you saw here, just get the project on my machine, get that project on my machine. This is a bit of the information, and if you're interested in why this was a separate tool, in the end of this day, there is a panel that talks about local development tools and also about the state of local development tools. To give you a very brief insight into the reasoning why this is a separate tool, is that at the time that we created this, both DDEV and Lando were too opinionated for our use case to connect our platform to it and make it as easy as a single command line. But that doesn't mean it cannot change in the future. So that's one thing. And if we then continue, we can see that there's multiple environments, and just imagine that we created our project, we installed it, we did config export, import, we deployed it. We'd like to log in to this environment. And that will be the first step towards connecting the different components. And I'll show you the different modules that are used to connect both Apache Unomi and Matic. And then I'll dive a bit deeper into Matic. As you can see, we have a one-time login link, and here I logged in. So let's see if this works. I actually have like one already open here, so that should also be fine. And that's why I get access denied. That's not too bad. But here in Manage Extend, we'll see a couple of the modules. One of the questions that I saw already is actually the question from Eirik. So the segment in the layout builder UI. That's what you meant with this. So here we have some content in the layout builder. You can also see that in Drupal, we changed a couple of things. So we have a view, which is the active view. And then we changed the way that we're allowing this content to be edited by the content editor. So we see edit content and structure and metadata. To take a look at structure and metadata, let's see here. You can see that the interface is very different. We moved lots of the things to the right and made the basic pages or the basic structure metadata a lot simpler. So this is only to fill in the header and maybe the image, and then here for meta tags and etc. But it has nothing to do with the content. If we want to edit the content, we actually click on Edit Content, and we're then moved into the layout builder. And this is the layout builder for the content editor. Now, what is possible with this configuration is that you can say that this subregion has specific locks. So for content editors, we can say you cannot remove this block, but you can edit the block. So in that way, we can prepare layouts where specific regions are blocked for the content editor, and in other regions, they can do anything they'd like. And so in this case, there is the button for get creative for Mother's Day or more creative IDs. You can add a block and say, okay, just some body text. Testing a rocket chip. We can do this as well. And then here is the specific thing, Eirik, that you mentioned, is the Unomi segment selection. So the block that you are adding here, you can say, I only want to show this to these specific segments. And this is open source for sure, but it does need a Drupal core patch. And the specific Drupal core patch, I'll show you layout builder conditions. Because even without Unomi, you still need this if you want to save, for example, only this block for specific roles. And this patch is in the need for review for 9.2. So very much recent stuff. And if you'd like to help this move forward, please tell it here that maybe you reviewed it, even though you don't use Unomi, or maybe you can set up Unomi locally to test if this is working for you. But okay, say that I only want to show this for explorers. We'll get into the Apache Unomi thing a bit, like what these segments mean. Add the block. And now we have this title and thing here. And as you know, with Layout Builder, we can drag and drop this left and right. Okay. We don't have a lot of time, so I'll save this and save content. And we should have this here. Testing rocket ship is at the top. Apparently I dragged it to the top. Okay. Now let's get back to Apache Unomi. Also, this demo site has Apache Unomi, and I have the project here. And I can see this is an interface for Apache Unomi that we have in the Dropsolid Experience platform, but ultimately it's an Apache project, so it's a Java project. And behind that, as a database, it's using Elasticsearch. To give you a bit more overview on the architecture, I'll explain you that here. Yeah, well, doesn't matter. I'll just explain it to you as we're in here. But what happens is that the captures go into Google Cloud. It goes into indeed like a machine learning pipeline. And then with some components from the Google Cloud, it actually goes to Unomi, asks, do I have any segment that matches with this session? And then gets back with that specific segment. In Unomi, you have, sorry for that, Benoit. I'll explain a bit what Unomi does. Unomi is a customer data platform that allows you to store any interaction with your site. I'll show it to you in practice. So here we have the site, and I say testing rocket ship, and I click on this, and I click on this, and I click again. What we should see now here in events is exactly what I did. So let's see if that worked. Here, this is exactly what I did. So the events and everything that I do as a user, anonymous or logged in, is then stored in a way in our customer data platform. Now, with that interaction data, which is now open, it's somewhat similar as Google Analytics, but it's your data, it's first-party data. And using that information, you can use the full power of Unomi to create segments. So you can see testing Rocketship and etc. Now within the segments, and that's another question that Benoit asked, the methodology to define the segments for a new website. And let's just see what happens. This is the automatic assistant that the Dropsolid Experience platform provides to you. And we can just ask it to generate 4 groups or 2 groups. Let's add 2 groups. And what we're asking now is, from all the data that you have that people clicked on in my Drupal site, can we distinguish 2 different patterns from people that are clicking on the website? And usually this should correspond a bit with the personas that you have on the website. And if, for example, in the case of Dropsolid, these are technical people and business people. In this demo case, this might be gibberish, but let's see. And you can also see what happened here. It created the machine learning segment. And here we see already that we have 11 sessions on the left, 4 sessions on the right. The people on the right usually go to blog and a bit overview, and apparently sessions on the left directly go to nature and flowers. So that could be interesting. You also asked methodology for defining the segments for a new website without a history. Well, usually you map them to personas, but personas are really hard to find out using the regular segment creations. So here, if you can see, we can create, for example, people from Belgium. But people from Belgium is not very often a persona. What you could do is to say, okay, people with, for example, touch support equals true. That means that you have a segment for people with a touch device. There's a lot of other things that you can do as well with this, and that's also something I wanted to show you. And that's the interacting with these data captures. What you can do is use a whole API. And let me drag down this API here. This is some small JavaScript snippets that you can add to your website to say, I don't want to capture things on Sunday. But what's more interesting is to say, and you don't have to read all the code, is that you want to say, add specific information to other components like Matmatic, to our marketing automation. For example, this segment. What you can also do is, if there's a campaign that came from social media, you can say, this parameter from my query or from my URL, read it out and send it to the event or to that capture towards Unomi, and then use that for segmentation. The segmentation can then be seen here, for example, that you say UTM parameters should be equal to this specific campaign, and then you have personalization based on campaigns. So that's things that you can try to define. If you want to know more about that, there was a session from Leen that you can watch again, but it might take us a bit too far. Okay, so we discovered some segments. We can transfer them into actual segments of Apache Unomi. And then in our website, we can see them in that dropdown. So we saw that. And let's take a look at how that looks like. If I also log out here. So if we go to our page, we see here testing Rocketship for Explorers. And I'm on Explorers. Let's go to B2B. We can see there's the block disappeared. If I go to Mother's Day, the block is still not showing, and we have Get Creative for Mother's Day. But if I go to Explorers, we can see we have this block. So you start to understand how we build these landing pages and how they could be different, and also how you can create those segments to be as flexible as you'd like without leaving the comfort of the content editor within Drupal with a segment building UI. That could be already very powerful in this combination. Now let's take a look at Matmatic. Matmatic is the marketing automation part. Also, if you want to know more about that, there are some sessions at DrupalCon that can explain you what it exactly does. But in the same fashion of Drupal, the Dropsolid platform allows you to start a new project, choose Matmatic as the installation profile, and just get started with Matmatic. You also have access to the Gitlab Repository, which you can see here. And the starting point that we use for Matmatic is also open source, and it's called Matmatic Project. And let me show that here. If you use Drupal, you might know this already. As you can see, I forked this from the Drupal project, which is called the Matmatic Project. And it's as easy as a single line to create Matmatic on your local machine yourself. So you can do compose a great project, Matmatic 3.x, and you can then add new dependencies using composer require. So this should feel very, very familiar. Now let's log into our Matmatic and let's see what the URL is of our development version, and that's this specific URL. As you can see, you can add domains to this environment or cron jobs, and those are all available. And let's log in to our instance. This is development environments. That's why it's a bit slower. If anything that I mentioned is not clear, feel free to add stuff to the chat. So what you can see here is that there's a couple of things that are happening. And in context, you can see that today, just a couple of minutes ago, I was active. That's curious. So let's take a look what's happened. And you can see that I'm actually capturing all the page visits. So this is very similar to Apache Unomi. You might question, like, why is it also capturing that? It's because you want to have also that information for marketing automation purposes. Every time you visit a page, you could increase the points, and then using points, you can start campaigns, for example. But the most interesting part for this specific demo is the forms. If you're using Drupal, you might know that you're also using web forms. But in this case, we're going to use Matmatic forms. And you can see here, there is already a form. And we can edit this form. And then it becomes quite familiar to web forms where you add, okay, let's see, add a description. Please add why you want to join. Okay, add. And then there's a submit. So say that we save this. We now have this form here. Now, how do we add this form into our Drupal site? And let's do this. We go back to edit the content. We add a block. We have a marketing automation form. And here in the bottom, we can see, okay, there's a workshop subscription form. That's exactly the same as this one. So you can see these two are connected, and they're connected using the Matmatic paragraph module. Okay, so that's this module. Maybe to answer one of the questions of Eirik, the segmenting that's open source is indeed that project that you mentioned, and that's Unomi. There's also a sub-project called Dropsolid Personalization, and the only thing that it does is it adds the authentication layer for the Dropsolid platform. So if you run Apache Unomi locally, follow that tutorial, and use that module and connect it to your local Unomi, that should be enough to get you started. Okay, now let's see where we were. Yeah, here. So I'm adding this workshop subscription form. Okay, and I only want to show this to online shoppers, for example. And so now I combined the two of them. Need to add a title. And that form is here. Let's see if we can save this. And hopefully this works. I didn't test this in advance. Great. Now this was added. There's something wrong with that description, but it's fine. We have the form here. Now let's refresh and know that there's varnish behind this site. I think if we now go to online shoppers, we see the form. We no longer see the text at the top. So now we combine marketing automation with Unomi to say that I only want to have conversions for specific segments. I'm not saying that this is a good idea, but you can do this yourself. So what we saw in the recap is that we know how to install Mautic locally. You can read the README to install Apache Unomi locally. There's two modules called Matmatic Paragraph and Unomi module, which I'll share in a bit, but it's all available on Drupal.org. Connecting both of them is a matter of filling in the configuration form, and then you're ready to go. Then next to that, you can use the Dropsolid experience platform for the machine learning and making sure that you make it easier for the marketeer to detect segments and maybe detect personas or couple them with personas. And then on top of that, there's a whole interface that we provide for Apache Unomi to make the segment creation easier. Maybe just to show you as well, the Apache Unomi website is here, and you can just download and visit, use Elasticsearch. But the API itself is also very well documented and can also be found just on Google, and you can see there's rules and all these things. The Dropsolid Experience Platform UI makes it just easier to work with this UI. Because we also use these segments in Mautic, we didn't think it made sense to embed this in Drupal. But if you're willing to collaborate, maybe we could change this over time and also expose this as an open source solution. And for that, I wanted to show you all these components that we just touched. And that's what we did here. So we have marketing automation with Mautic, Apache Unomi, Drupal, and the Unomi Drupal module. We had Mautic form embedding with the Mautic paragraph, which also allows you to do Mautic blocks, and so not limited to paragraphs. There's a rocket ship distribution. We didn't touch the cookie compliance, but trust me, it's also open source and available on Drupal.org. And then the sauce on top of it is the whole UI and Dropsolid platform for AI segmentation and the full integration with GitLab in our platform. What you can also do if you still want to develop on top of these things and not use Google Analytics for like basic metrics, we can use Matomo Analytics, which is also open source. And then if you want to develop this UI yourself, there is a Node.js connector and SDK for Apache Unomi that we maintain. And there's an Apache Unomi SDK for PHP that is also maintained by Dropsolid and is used by the Drupal module. So that's a lot to take in. And data form analytics tool, Google Analytics be used for segmentation might be a question that I'm happy to answer in our booth, which I'll be at in a moment. This is the Dropsolid booth. So please hop in there if you want to see more details about anything that I just shown. If you have any other questions, you have 15 more seconds to ask me. But with that, I just also wanted to show you the overview of our Dropsolid platform. We have a lot more machine learning and AI to share with you also in regards to Solar, but maybe see you in our booth. Bye-bye.